Welcome back to the Wheatfield. I'm so happy you are here. We're in the harvest season. We're going to stay here for who knows how long because there is so much to learn about counting our blessings and what the harvest season looks like and all the things that it can entail. Good, bad, ugly. Speaking of good, bad, ugly, we had an election since I last put a Wheatfield Wednesday up. A lot has transpired, right? And I wanted to recognize that an election took place. I wanted to recognize that I voted in that election. I wanted to recognize the fact that I'm 100% confident that God has not called me in this season to be have political commentary in any way, shape, or form. He has made that so clear to me. Cannot promise that it may change at some point, but right now I know that the political landscape is not the landscape that I am called to speak into. I'm called to speak into a totally different landscape, a literal landscape of a wheat field and a life of abundance. The one thing I will say though is this. I feel it in my heart and was completely, disclaimer, church word coming, convicted as I prepared this message and thought about the way that this election, before the election, during the election, currently, believers on both sides, how we have made an idol out of this election, and it has consumed our mind, and it has consumed our thoughts, and it has caused anxiety, and it has caused arrogance, and it has caused pride on both sides. And I just can't help but think the way we've made this election an idol in our life. And I pray that I won't do that anymore. I pray that you won't do that anymore. We can all agree on one thing, and that thing is, yes, a president is important, but this country needs Jesus. I don't care how crazy that sounds. I don't care how churchy that sounds. Jesus will save this country. And that is where my heart is to point us all to him and the life that he has given us. So that's as political as I'm going to get on here. And what we're going to do is talk about harvest. Last week we talked about the wheat and how when the wheat was ready to be harvested and it was at its peak, it bowed and thanked the Lord, had gratitude for the Lord for getting it to its place of harvest. And just a reminder for us that if the wheat can do that, we should be doing that too. This week I want to talk about something different in harvest, and that is when, because this happens to me all the time, when the harvest that I have been given and blessed with, no matter how big or how small, the role as a wife, the role as a mom, the role as taking care of a home, being a daughter, being a friend, all this harvest sometimes, being a good citizen of the United States of America, it can feel overwhelming and burdensome. Harvest can feel overwhelming and burdensome. Anyone else feel that way? Show of hands, please. Surely I'm not the only one. I was in Georgia a few weeks ago and I had this pretty crazy and awesome thing happen. And I was, my in-laws live on a lake down there, and the moon, the night I was down there, it wasn't a full moon. I think the full moon was on Halloween night, but this was the night before. And it could have just, to me, it was a full moon. I haven't seen a moon that grasped, took my attention like that moon has in a really long time. I kid you not, I think I could see the craters on the moon, if there's craters on the moon. I could see things on the moon I didn't even know existed. It was incredible. And because they're on a lake, it was just so big. There was a reflection. And so I went down to their dock and I was standing there in awe of the moon. And I don't know if anyone else does this when they're out in nature and looking at things that man did not create, that God created. It's the most humbling, I am so small, God is so big feeling. And I had that feeling. And while I was looking at that moon, it made me want to pray. So I started praying. And the only thing I said, God, help me to carry all the things that you have given me. And I heard it, felt it, knew it in my spirit. This is what I heard. Stop trying to carry everything and let me carry you. What a freeing moment that was for me. Obviously, I've gotten it all wrong, right? Thinking I was solely the one in charge of carrying all this abundance that he's given me. If I thought more about him carrying me while I was carrying the abundance, my responsibility and callings would feel way less burdensome, right? So here's where the story gets pretty cool. Well, I was looking at that crazy moon. This is where we can all cue the Chris Tomlin Be the Moon song, right? I felt compelled to text my best friend from childhood. We're constantly like voice texting each other about things. And all I said was something like, man, I'm sitting here on my in-laws' dock and the moon is so bright and I'm just so like in awe of it and it's making me feel so small and realizing how big God is. And she voice texted back a few things. And then when she got done doing that, she said, P.S., read these verses. And she sent me all these verses. Now, disclaimer before I read you these verses. I had not mentioned the whole, and while I was looking at the moon, I prayed, God, help me to carry all these things. And he responded with, stop trying to carry them and just remember that I'm carrying you. I didn't mention any of that to her at all. And here are the verses that she sent me. Part of them. It's Isaiah 46, 3 through 4. 3 through 4. Are you ready? Listen to me, you descendants of Jacob, all the remnant of the people of Israel, you who I have upheld since your birth and have carried since you were born. Even to your old age and gray hairs, I am he who will sustain you. I have made you and I will carry you. What? I was floored. When we were chatting earlier, she had mentioned that she was studying something in the Psalms. So I was like, why in the world did you send these verses? Random verses from Isaiah. Ends up, she had read them that week. They were in her mom's Sunday school lesson. And she'd never read them before and was like, oh, I should send these to Delaney. Like 2 minutes after I had heard, just let me carry you from God. This may be coincidental to you. It may not mean much to you. But when I hear, let me carry you in my spirit, and then 2 minutes later, a friend is randomly sending me a verse that I've never read before that says, I have carried you since you were born and I will continue to carry you, it means a lot to me. So here's our reminder for today. Abundance isn't all fun. It's not all light. It's not always easy to carry. It doesn't come wrapped up in a pretty little bow and presented to us. I'm going to share more about how not pretty abundance can be sometimes in a post later on this week, thanks to a verse that another friend introduced me to. But sometimes abundance is messy. Sometimes abundance is, well, a lot to handle. Sometimes abundance is just a lot to carry. The relationships, the jobs, the family, the friends, the house, the health, the weight of things going on in our country, it all adds up. If your abundance is feeling heavy today, remember that he is carrying you. Let him carry you. Let him do the heavy lifting. He is carrying you. You are not holding it up all by yourself. That was a huge reminder for me week before last, and I wanted to pass it on to you. It's okay if abundance feels heavy. We can still say we're blessed when it's hard. We just have to remember he's carrying us and we are not alone in it. Have a great week. I'll see you next week. Don't miss the week.